It's something that has been a challenge, and it continues to be a challenge, especially just knowing that that wasn't what got me better. I'm grateful that God has led me to find what helped me to heal, even though it wasn't this surgery. I also want to be clear that if you find progress from this surgery or improvements from it, then I will 100% be celebrating with you. Hey my friends, in today's video I am going to be sharing my raw thoughts looking back on my craniocervical fusion surgery that I had 5 years ago. And before I get into it, I just kind of want to make a couple disclaimers here, and I have some notes on my phone, so if you see me looking down, I'm just referencing that because there's a lot that I want to cover, there's a lot that I want to talk about, and this is a video that I have wanted to make for years really now, and it's something that I just really struggle to talk about. It's triggering for me. I can already feel my chest getting tight just thinking about it, but I think it's important to share a different perspective. And so just keep in mind that this is all just my experience, my thoughts. Take them with a grain of salt. I'm not trying to convince people one way or the other, but rather just share my honest experience. And if you're planning to have this surgery, this video may not be the best one for you, especially if you already feel really good about it and you feel like it's the right decision for you. It may not be the best video to watch. I did not have a positive experience with this surgery, and I'm going to be real about that, but the silver lining to this is that I am now doing very well. It's been over 5 years since this surgery. I consider myself to be healthy. I am exercising, I'm rock climbing, I'm hiking, I can travel, I'm living a normal life, and I'm so grateful for that, but it was not the surgery that got me better. And I was actually at my sickest about a year to 2 years after that surgery, and I will go into that in more detail as I reflect on my experience with it and what led us up to the surgery, and then what happened afterwards and what ended up actually really getting me better, and how I would have approached things differently had I known what I know now. This has been one of the hardest things for me in my healing journey, because I really do wish every single day that I could go back and not have this surgery, because it affects me still every day. It brought me complications, and I will go into that as well. It's a really big deal to have this surgery, and I wish that they would convey that more, and I wish that I had known what I know now, but I really do feel like I had that surgery for a reason, and it wasn't because it got me better. It was because God was leading me to where I am now, to where I can share my experience and hopefully help others realize that there are often many other paths to healing and other things to consider. And I actually have had quite a few people message me with cervical and craniocervical instability, saying that because of what I shared with my experience with surgery, that they decided not to have surgery and that they have found healing through other methods, and nothing makes me more happy than that. And if I can help even just one person have hope for healing, and even just help them with a direction in their journey, that is worth it for me. I also wanted to mention that if you have had this surgery, also proceed with caution with this video. I'm going to talk about my anxieties, my limiting beliefs, just all the raw thoughts to do with this surgery, and so I don't want to project that on anyone else. So yeah, just proceed with caution. If you're brain retraining, that sort of thing, I'm going to talk about symptoms and experiences and things that may not be great for somebody if they're in the midst of intensive brain retraining. So let's go ahead and start with what led up to me getting this surgery. So I was very, very sick. I was diagnosed with craniocervical instability. I was also diagnosed with Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, and I was having severe pain, severe neurological symptoms, dizziness, vertigo. I was having non-epileptic seizures and dystonias. I was having difficulty walking. I had to use a wheelchair for most distances. I had to spend a lot of time in a dark, quiet room. I was mostly bedbound and just completely debilitated with symptoms. And so we were definitely desperate at this time, and we went to go see, I think it was 3 of the top surgeons. I'm not going to name any surgeons in here, just because I want to respect them and not be calling them out on anything, even if I have differing opinions. But I was diagnosed with the craniocervical instability, and I was recommended to have surgery, and basically told that that was my only option at that point. And so we decided to go ahead with the surgery. The surgery was a very traumatic experience for me, especially looking back, and in the moment we were really just in survival mode. But I ended up having an infection. I had to have an emergency surgery. I had additional hospital stays, and I lost a bunch of weight. I became very malnourished, and it was just a really, really difficult time. It was a difficult adjustment. The surgery actually made my jaw issues worse. So if you guys had seen in a past video, I had a locked jaw for years. But after this surgery, I could not open my mouth. I'm not even kidding you. Like I couldn't chew at all. Like it was just the tiniest amount that I could open my mouth. My brother-in-law made me a special toothbrush that he shaved down so that I could just barely brush my teeth. So my jaw issues were definitely worsened by the surgery, and all of that is connected. And I think that's something that a lot of people don't realize, is how connected the jaw is to the neck and the spine and everything. And so that was also one of the first issues that I encountered. And I would say at about a year, I became even more reliant on my neck brace, and I was at my sickest, I would say, in between 1 to 2 years after my fusion surgery. So keep in mind, it has been over 5 years now. And at that time, I was at my very sickest. And I was extremely reliant on my neck brace, even more so than before my surgery. And I was living in this constant state of like, every day felt like a true emergency, and it was a living hell. That is the best way I could possibly describe it. And looking back, I really wanted that surgery to be necessary. And I know that sounds crazy to say, but when you're in such a desperate situation, sometimes it feels like you need to have this big resolution. But because I went through so much from the surgery, I really wanted it to be necessary, and I wanted to think that it was helping, and I wanted to think that it saved my life, just because of how much it put me through. But it took me a long time to realize it did not help. It did not help me get better. It brought me complications. It got me sicker. I became more malnourished after the surgery. That's when I dropped to my lowest weight. I was 50 pounds lighter than I was at this point now. And so I was close to needing a feeding tube, and it was just unfathomable, the place that I was in. And I was actually being recommended more surgeries at this point, and nothing about it felt right. I, at that point, had been through 5 neurosurgeries, and I was sicker than I was before those neurosurgeries. And so intuitively, I just couldn't do it. At that point, I said, this is not working. If I'm gonna get better, this is not the way. And of course, remember, this is just my situation. Always do what's best for you, but this is my experience. And I think it also isn't emphasized how big of a deal this surgery is. It is a big deal to fuse your skull to your neck, and it doesn't fix the root cause of the problem of instability. To just fuse the neck to the skull and assume that that is a fix for the problem, to me, now looking back, that just doesn't add up. And especially for people that are dealing with connective tissue problems, like for example EDS, I think they should be even more cautious with recommending surgery, because the outcomes when you are in a state where connective tissue isn't quite working properly, the outcome of the surgery is likely to not be as positive. And for me, it definitely made the instability below my fusion worse. It puts a lot of pressure down below there, and not to mention that area that they fuse from your skull to C2 is a very important area for the function of your vagus nerve and your nervous system. And so to restrict movement in that area is a huge, huge deal for life. That can't be undone. And that's something that it almost like it haunts me, because I really do wish every day that I could go back and not have that surgery. Before I go into more of my raw thoughts on looking back on the surgery and some of the physical complications that I had because of it, and also the impact on my mental health, I want to share about my healing journey and what really did help me to get better. So at that point that I decided not to have any more surgery, I also told myself that I would be open-minded to other things, and that I would just be willing to do anything or try anything to get better, even if it was something outside of my comfort zone, even if it was something that didn't go along with mainstream medicine or what other people thought of as normal. And I also told myself that I would start to believe that I could get better, even if doctors told me that that was not a possibility for me. And so one of the first things that I came across was acupuncture, and I started getting acupuncture, and I was so sensitive at this time that I think my acupuncturist did like 3 to 5 minutes of putting a couple of needles in, and that was as much as my body could handle. And we slowly worked up from there and eventually started working a little bit on my neck. And over the period, I think, of about 6 months or so, I started to see some very small improvements from acupuncture. And that was really encouraging for me. And at the time, I was still like doing research on lots of different things, and I ended up also starting treatment for Lyme disease. And I'm not going to go into that too much because that wasn't one of the main contributors to my healing. In fact, if I were to go back, I don't think that I would have done Lyme disease treatments, because I feel that the real important thing with Lyme disease is to address the nervous system so that your body can detoxify and heal on its own. But that was another thing that I started to do. And I think it was almost 3 years ago now, I started to hear about something called the carnivore diet. And this sounded completely crazy to me when I first heard about it. I was still kind of under the impression that meat wasn't good for you and that it was bad for the environment and all these things. And I was honestly mostly plant-based for a lot of my life. Like, I didn't eat very much meat, and I had a phase where I was vegetarian and all those things. And so that sounded crazy to me, but I started looking into it more and more and more, and I couldn't find a negative story from somebody who had done it for at least a couple of months. And that was for like all different chronic illnesses. It was autoimmune diseases, cancers, so many different things that this crazy carnivore diet seemed to really be helping people with. And so I went down that rabbit hole from bed. I was spending most of my time in bed just listening to carnivore podcasts. And I was really scared to try it because I felt like I couldn't afford to get worse. And because I was so sick at the time. And there came a point where I was like, I just gotta try this. I gotta do it. I will always wonder if I don't try it. I started the carnivore diets in, I think, August of 2021. And it was difficult. It was really hard. It was a hard transition. I'd say the first couple weeks were the hardest, and the first month was tough. But with every bite I took, I told myself that I was making my body stronger, that this was for my healing, that this was for my health, and it was going to help me get better. And I would say between 4 and 6 weeks, I started to see some very small improvements. And this was mostly with my chronic fatigue crashes and energy levels, and I was able to be out of bed for longer amounts of time. I started being able to cook my own food from a chair in the kitchen, and those were big milestones for me. But I would say at about 4 to 6 months of doing the carnivore diets, I started seeing significant improvements in my neck instability, and I was able to be out of my neck brace for I'd say 6 to 8 hours a day. And before then I was in it almost 24/7. And so that was a huge improvement for, a short amount of time, 4 to 6 months of doing that diet. And at that point, I decided to get Prolotherapy. And I have a whole series on my experience with Prolotherapy, and we had treatments done down at Caring Medical in Florida. I also had neck curve correction treatments as well, and I found this to be really helpful and supportive of my healing, especially just in terms of my neck symptoms and being able to be out of my neck brace. And so I think it's important to mention that I had already seen significant improvements with my diet in my neck instability, but I think that those two combined together helped me to improve even faster. So I continued doing the diet while getting the Prolotherapy treatments, and I'd say within 2 or 3 months of doing the Prolotherapy treatments, I started to be able to be out of my neck brace even more. And so I really am grateful that we were able to do that, and I found that to be very supportive of my healing. I actually have a video sharing would I have healed if I hadn't had Prolotherapy, and that goes more into my thoughts about that, because I actually think that I would have done things a little bit differently had I known about brain retraining. I probably would have tried that first just because it would have saved a lot of money. And if I had known how important that was for me, I probably would have tried that first and just continued with the diet, trying to strengthen my body and my connective tissue. But I'm still glad that I did the Prolotherapy treatments, and really grateful for the progress that it's brought me. And so you can go back to that series if you're interested in that at all. But I think the reason why I don't super often talk about Prolotherapy anymore is because I don't want people to feel like if you can't afford Prolotherapy, or if it's not an option for you, that there's no hope for you, or that healing isn't possible for you. And that just isn't true. I've heard from many different people that have found healing with just an animal-based diet alone, or just nervous system regulation alone, or those two combined for cervical instability. And that's why I hesitate to share about it, but I think it's a great tool for those that have the capacity for it. And I think with Prolotherapy, the timing for me was actually very key, because Prolotherapy is a stressor. And so if your nervous system is in an extremely hypervigilant state, there's a chance that the treatment may not go as well, because if you're not able to handle any level of stressor, then your body may not take to it well, if that makes sense. And so I think if I had done Prolotherapy, especially that intensive Prolotherapy that I did at Caring Medical, he does it very aggressively, that my nervous system wouldn't have been able to handle it. If I were to have tried that before I started the carnivore diet, I think the carnivore diet really gave me more stability and strength to be able to handle those treatments, if that makes sense. And so I think that was all really God's timing with that. And then after I had the Prolotherapy treatments in April of 2022, I started a brain retraining program called DNRS, and I started visualizing myself healthy and strong for an hour a day. And from the time that I started brain retraining to about 3 weeks later, I went from not being able to walk to the end of my driveway to being able to walk an entire mile. And I'm not kidding when I say that brain retraining brought me the quickest progress from anything else that I have tried, or any sort of treatment in my journey with chronic illness. And it has been absolutely life-changing for me. And there are lots of different brain retraining programs out there, and it's not magic, it's not secret. Like, I think sometimes when people hear brain retraining, they think like, oh, what's that? You know, it's really what it is it's guiding your nervous system into a parasympathetic state so that your body can do what it's designed to do, which is heal. And I think some people don't realize that that actually can have a physiological effect. It can help your body to be able to repair itself truly physically. And I have heard quite a few stories of people making amazing progress with neck instability through brain retraining. But I think for me, I was set up for really quick success because of my diet. And so I had a level of stability from, I think at the point of starting brain retraining, I was about 9 months into the carnivore diet. And so I had made a lot of physical progress and gained a lot of physical strength before starting brain retraining. And I think that really set me up for success with it because I wasn't completely bedbound at the time. I was already really improving and already seeing healing. And so I think if I hadn't done that, then maybe the progress may not have been as quick with the brain retraining. But I think in combination with diet, having a true nourishing animal-based diet and brain retraining, that can be incredibly healing, especially for people with connective tissue disorders and for cervical instability. I can't tell you how many people have sent me messages that have EDS or spinal instability saying that they're seeing great improvements with an animal-based diet or a carnivore diet or brain retraining. And I actually have a blog post, I'll link it down below, and it's just my experience with the carnivore diet for Ehlers-Danlos syndrome in general. And I also have a bunch of examples of other people that have seen success with it because my story is just one, right? I hope more and more people will be sharing. And I think that was one of the reasons why it was so scary for me in the beginning to make all these changes, because I would Google like EDS and carnivore or EDS and brain retraining and nothing would pop up. And so I'm really hoping to change that, and I'm really hoping to start sharing other people's stories, maybe even in a video format where I share stories of healing from instability and from EDS, because I think there's so much need for hope in that community, and the more people that are sharing, the better, because when you see other people healing, it helps you to believe that healing is possible for you too. And that definitely helped me, just watching other people heal from various types of chronic illnesses. It helped me to believe that it was possible for me too. Let's see here. So the happy part of the story is that I am now doing really well. I am healthy and I don't consider myself to be chronically ill anymore, and I don't consider myself to have spinal instability. I don't use my neck brace anymore. I was actually thinking the other day that I should just throw it away because I haven't used it. I haven't needed it in quite some time. And that was, I think it was over 5 years that I needed to have my neck brace in some capacity. So it was a long ride with that neck brace. I'm really grateful to be free of it. But I want to now go into some of the struggles that I faced from the surgery, that I still face because of the surgery. But yeah, just another reminder that this is not trying to convince you one way or another. I'm just sharing my heart on this, and I'm not a medical professional. I'm just somebody that has done a lot of research, experienced this myself, and talked to hundreds, maybe even 1,000 people that have gone through this. I'm just checking out my list here. So something interesting to note, when I was going in to have surgery, I actually had heard about Prolotherapy, and I asked the surgeon that I ended up going with about it, and he told me that he felt it was too risky. And to me, looking back, that just doesn't sound right. That sounds crazy, honestly. Like, having injections guided into your cervical area versus screws that are literally put permanently into your skull and your vertebrae that are coming so close to major arteries, that to me just doesn't add up. I think prolotherapy really is a great option if it's something people can afford and it's something people are in a place where they can tolerate. But that being said, it's not the only path to healing, and that's something I always want to share. There are always many paths to healing. So yeah, like I shared in the past, as I was going through my experience with the surgery, I was more reliant on my neck brace 1 to 2 years after the surgery. I was at my sickest. I was just desperately ill, and the surgery didn't provide me any relief. And like I said, I wanted it to. I wanted to believe that it did. I wanted it to because of how much it put me through and how much trauma I went through because of that surgery and the complications that I had from it. I wanted so badly for it to be necessary. But now looking back, I would not have that surgery again if I were to go back. And that's also something that I found to be difficult about sharing my story online, because so many people assume that the surgery was what healed me and accuse me of being dishonest about other things such as animal-based diet and brain retraining being the main things that help me recover. And I've been nothing but honest about that. And it feels so hurtful when people comment saying that the surgery was what got me better, as if they know better than me what got me better. I wish every day that I could go back and not have it, and it's brought me complications and anxiety, and it still affects me every day. And so it's just hard to hear that, but that's a small thing in comparison to being able to spread a message of hope to people with chronic illness. It is very worth it, and it has been a big blessing to me to be able to share. So yeah, I mentioned the jaw issues, so this actually goes into something that I haven't shared about at all. So like I said, my jaw opening got even worse after the surgery, and that was something that I eventually was able to find some improvements with over time. So something that I think is one of the hardest things for me to accept and grasp about this surgery is that it actually made my airway worse. So when you draw the head back like this, what they do in the surgery, it actually can make your airway worse because, and this is something that's interesting to think about, because when you have an underdeveloped jaw, which is usually caused by ultra-processed foods, not eating enough things like tough meat and stuff like that in childhood, or from not breastfeeding, but having an underdeveloped jaw actually makes you more predisposition to have a forward neck posture. And when you have a forward neck posture, that puts a lot of extra weight on your cervical spine. And so that really leads to instability. And so all those things are related. But the reason why people who have underdeveloped jaws tend to have the forward neck posture is because they're trying to get more air, because the airway is also underdeveloped because of that. And so bringing it back can actually make the airway worse, which is an interesting phenomenon that I don't quite fully understand yet. But I actually was diagnosed with significant sleep apnea after having this surgery, and this is something that I haven't shared, but I for years have woken up feeling like I can't breathe, gasping for air. I can't sleep on my back because I feel like I'm choking. And that was worsened by the surgery. I actually had a sleep study before the surgery, and I didn't have sleep apnea. And now I have moderate to severe sleep apnea, likely caused by the surgery. I was supposed to get a tongue tie release, and I was referred to a doctor about that, and he said, "You don't need a tongue tie release, you need double jaw surgery." I said, "What?" And this could be a video of its own. It's something I haven't shared at all about. It's been almost a year since that. And at this point, I was healthy. Like, I was doing well. I had seen all this progress. I was healing and doing really well, but just struggling with the sleep and the breathing, and just kind of trying to work on those things to improve my overall health. Anyways, he said, yeah, that surgery probably did impact your airway significantly and make this worse. And I heard that from, we saw several doctors, and ended up considering a jaw surgery for a time, but ultimately ended up deciding that it was not right for me, even though I was really being recommended it, like, you really need it. I decided not to, because I feel good about where I am with my health, and I've had negative experiences with surgeries in the past, and that's a very major surgery, and I'm just going to do everything I can to optimize everything that's going on with my jaw and my palate and my neck. I'm just going to do everything I can naturally, and myofunctional therapy has been helpful. I've been working on my tongue posture and working on nasal breathing, and that has been helpful. And I actually ended up having my tongue tie released this February, so just a couple of months ago, and it hasn't been any sort of huge life-changing thing. I was doing well when I had it released. I'm still doing well now, but I think that will end up being supportive of my healing over time, because now I'm able to get the back of my tongue up to my palate, and I'm able to swallow normally, which I think in time will help maybe with some kind of natural expansion of my upper palate, and hopefully like some forward movement in my jaw to kind of allow for my airway to get more space. So I'm editing this video, and I just wanted to say that this experience has really taught me that our bodies have an amazing ability to heal and adapt, even given less than ideal structural circumstances. So my jaw is severely recessed. Like, as you can see, I have no jawline. And that's not good for your health. It's not good for your airway. But yet I'm healthy and I'm strong, and my body has found ways to heal and adapt even given this less than ideal structural circumstance, I have a very narrow palate. I had a tongue tie up until a couple of months ago, and I was living a normal life with all of those things. And so I think sometimes it can be easy to become hung up on these structural things, thinking there's these huge barriers to recovery and there's nothing we can do, but there's always something that we can do to improve our health at any given time. I mean, it's just, to me, it's amazing what our bodies are able to do and how we're able to find ways to thrive, even given less than ideal circumstances. And I forgot to mention that when I saw those jaw surgeons last year, they literally, I could hear an audible gasp when they had me turn to look at my profile. They classified it as very severe, and yet I'm healthy and I'm doing well, and I'm trying not to let that become this huge limiting belief for me, because my body is so capable of being healthy and there's a lot I can do to support it naturally. And so yeah, anyway, back to the video. This is gonna be a long video. I have a lot of thoughts on this and I want to kind of just compile it all in one video so that I don't have to revisit this often. This is something that I've thought about a lot that I didn't recognize when I was in this situation and very, very sick. But when I went into the waiting room of this surgeon, never once did I meet somebody that was just coming for a checkup, that was doing really good after their surgery or had seen like huge health improvements from it. Everybody was in wheelchairs, walkers, you know, people would be having their 8th surgery or they'd be having their 5th surgery, and everybody was extremely sick, like me. And even the people that I saw, there were a couple people who had photographs in the surgeon's office saying that they saved their life or whatever. A lot of those people I actually knew and were still very, very severely ill. And looking back, it seems like maybe they've gotten sicker over time. It breaks my heart because it's such a hard situation, and when you're in that desperate situation, you know, you just want to do what's best for you and anything for relief, anything to get better. But I feel like there are so many things that we can do to support our bodies before going to something like that. And so if I were to go back now, I absolutely would have tried the carnivore diet for at least 6 months or more before going with surgery. I would have tried prolotherapy. I would have tried brain retraining. I especially would have tried brain retraining even before doing prolotherapy, especially if my nervous system was still super hypervigilant, where prolotherapy often, if you're in that state, sometimes it may not be as effective, if that makes sense, because it is a stressor. Anyway, it took me a while to really realize that this surgery, it did not save my life. It did not bring me the benefits that I thought it would and I hoped it would, and that, I guess, was kind of a heartbreaking realization because of how much it put me through and how much trauma it put me through with the life-threatening infections, the emergency surgery, the extra hospital stays, and the weight loss, the malnourishment, and the worsening of instability in my jaw, and all these things, like, that it didn't get me better. And for a while, I would spend a lot of time in these Facebook groups, and that's another thing that was really important for my healing, was just getting out of Facebook groups, because I feel like just that environment can be toxic. Not the people are great, but the environment is just really bad for our health in a lot of ways. But when people said negative things about my surgeon, I would become so defensive because I wanted so badly to trust that he did the right thing for me. And I don't hold this against him at all. He did his best with the knowledge that he had, and obviously he felt like this was something that would help me, and it didn't, and that's okay, because it was a part of my story for a reason. Another thing that I wanted to talk about is the anxieties that this surgery brought me. And so I actually never was an anxious person, and I really hadn't dealt with anxiety until after this surgery. So I was told after the surgery to never move my neck again at all, which I don't follow that anymore, and I don't believe that that's a good decision for anyone, really. And I've been told by many physical therapists and other doctors that that is not healthy, to not have movement in such an important area. I followed that strictly, and even I remember my mom hearing it multiple times from this doctor, like, make sure you don't move your head, and she was really just trying to be as supportive as possible, and I love my mom for that. But that brought me a lot of anxiety. I literally was having nightmares of me accidentally turning my neck just a little bit and snapping my neck in half. And this is gonna get into a little bit of the heavy stuff here. So if you want to skip over it, I understand. My chest is already getting a little bit tight, but I was so fearful. It was such a crazy feeling to not be able to move your neck. And I felt that more as I got out of my neck brace many years later, but the best way I can describe it as claustrophobic, but very much so. And I really, as I was watching other people move their necks, I wanted so badly to do that, and it continues to feel like you just want to stretch your neck and do like a big neck roll, but you can't, because there's restriction in movement in that very important area. And so that's one of the really hard things. I know it's small. It really is small in comparison to what I was going through. And if that surgery got me better, that would be a very small thing, right? But it didn't. And so that has been a really hard thing for me, just because of the claustrophobia that I feel, not being able to just, and I have some movement, like as you can see, I have some movement, but like direct movement rotationally, I have almost none, because that's what's fused. And so I can go up and down some and everything now, and I'm not afraid to move my neck anymore. That's something I've worked a lot on and I've made a lot of progress on. And at the time I was so sick that I really was just like, oh, I gotta follow the surgeon's instructions perfectly. If I don't, then I won't get better, I won't have a good outcome. So that was tough, and it continues to be tough. It's harder than you might think. As I started driving again, I have to turn my whole body. And if you're like sitting on a couch with two people next to you, then I feel like I'm moving my body like crazy, just trying to look at people. And it's more inconvenient than you might think. And again, if it was what got me better, then that'd be a very, very small price to pay. I was having a conversation with my sister about a month ago, and we were talking about this, and I was talking about kind of the struggles that I have had because of it, and she looked me in the eye and she said, I don't think that surgery did a thing for you, Rachel. And it was just crazy to hear that from her, even though I knew that I already felt that way about the surgery, just from an outsider's perspective. And so she's someone that was there for me through all of this, and she said she just had a really bad feeling about the surgery. And she's actually a physician's assistant, she's a PA, and so she's a medical provider, and she really just, she doesn't like surgeries. She feels like they just often don't have good outcomes. She said that she really thought I was going to die on the operating table. That was how sick I was, and that was just hard to hear. And in a way, I almost wish that she had told me that beforehand, because I really value her opinion. But again, this was a part of God's plan for me, even if it just means to show to other people that there are other paths to consider. And I already really feel like that purpose has been brought about, and this was a part of my story. I'm working on accepting it. It's hard. Also, my fusion has brought me a lot of limiting beliefs, like, well, can I fully get better because of this surgery? Could I go snow skiing one day? And I think maybe not, because of this, I had that surgery. And I still have this picture in my mind of me falling or moving my neck too far and my entire neck just like snapping in half. I know that's probably really unrealistic and probably wouldn't happen, but it's scary. There's something about my neck that doesn't feel like it's mine. And that was something that my acupuncturist kind of has talked with me about over the years. He said, you need to reclaim your neck, because it feels so foreign, and it still does 5+ years later. But obviously I am so grateful to be doing well and to be healthy again. Another aspect of this for me was it really changed the way that I looked. So I guess I'll see if I can put a picture here of before and after of a profile of me, in terms of like how my jawline looked before the surgery and after. Because it pulled my neck back up like this, and because I don't have the hinge motion of my neck, it completely changed the look of like my face and jawline, and I'm very self-conscious of that. And I feel bad even talking about this, because I know most people watching this are probably like, really difficult health situation, and this is very minuscule in comparison, but it's a real thing and it's valid. Like, I honestly have struggled to look in the mirror, and I just feel like I used to be so much more beautiful. And that's been a hard aspect of it for me, especially as I've healed and gotten better. But anyway, it's changed the way I look a lot. And that's hard to accept when the surgery not only brought you physical complications, anxieties, trauma, emergency surgery, malnourishment, like all these things that brought with it, and then it also changed your looks for the rest of your life. It sounds small, but it's hard, and that's the honest truth. It's not me looking for any sort of validation. It's just me being honest with how I felt and my experience with this surgery. Yeah, I guess I just wanted to be honest about that one too. I haven't talked about it a lot, but I look at old pictures of me and I feel really sad because I look different, and I know you're your own worst critic. Some people may not notice it, but I notice it a lot. And that's something I'm working on too, is learning how to feel beautiful again, like the new me. It's something that has been a challenge, and it continues to be a challenge, especially just knowing that that wasn't what got me better, and it brought me a lot of complications and heartache and trauma that I am still working through. Let me just check my list here to see if I've missed anything on this topic. Oh yeah, I wanted to share that when I went to Caring Medical to get the neck treatments, the doctor doing those looked me in the eye and told me, you won't get all the way better because you had that fusion surgery. It was really hard to hear, and it kind of implanted this limiting belief in a way in me where I was like, oh, is he right? He was like, maybe we'll get to 90 or 95. And I thought to myself, no, like, I want to get to 100. And I still believe I can get there. And I'm getting close. You know, I'm probably at 80–85%. I think those limiting beliefs from my fusion have been tough for me to navigate because I'm like, my skull is literally fused to my neck. That can't be undone, as much as I wish it could. But at the same time, all things are possible through God. I really believe that. And if God wanted to come and completely heal me of that and heal me of the fusion and everything, I believe he could, but I don't think that that's very likely in this life. But that doesn't mean I still can't fully heal in every other way. And so that's what I'm choosing to believe in and put my hope in. And I am, I would say, healed of neck instability, and I've been slowly increasing my capacity for things like exercise and things that are kind of like more jarring to the neck. And I think it was a year ago that I stopped using my neck brace altogether. I was already doing really well at that point, but I still needed to sleep with it on. I got to a point where I was able to stop sleeping with it and stop needing it at all. And so this has all been gradual progress, but it has been amazing to see how my body has been capable of healing, and I'm really grateful for all that I have learned through it, and grateful that I have the opportunity to share and encourage other people that are dealing with chronic illness. And so, yeah, I guess when it comes down to it, I really would say that the animal-based diet was one of the most supportive things for my neck instability and overall body instability specifically. And I think that's something that I mentioned in my video about what I've been able to heal without Prolotherapy, because I had connective tissue issues and instability in other areas of my body, like my jaw and my ankles, fingers, wrists, all those things, and I don't experience any of that anymore. I don't meet the EDS diagnostic criteria anymore, even though I was a severe case, and I didn't have any sort of treatments on those areas. And so because I started to see improvements in my neck before getting Prolotherapy on it, and I have seen complete resolution of any other instability in my body, I really feel that I could have healed without it. But I'm really, really grateful that I was able to have the treatments, because they did help. They did absolutely help, and they helped accelerate my healing and support all these other things that I was doing to help my body to heal. And of course, the nervous system regulation and the brain retraining were very, very helpful as well. And I think that has been really supportive of my healing in terms of instability. And it's difficult to explain how brain retraining can help with structural things like this, but it really can, because when we're in a trauma and a survival response, our body tends to kind of go into these protective postures and stances, and also just every cell of your body is impacted, and that can impact your connective tissue, and so it absolutely can help with that. And I started with the DNRS program. There are lots of other great programs out there. I'm actually going through Primal Trust right now, which I think is the most comprehensive program that I've found so far. And the owner actually has dealt with cervical instability herself. Her daughter has as well. So she's very aware of it. And she's actually planning on trying to create a program specifically for people with spinal instability and EDS to help those people to heal and have a better quality of life. She also has a free book about brain retraining that kind of just shows the connection between chronic illness and nervous system state and how important it is to address that. I'll put a link to that in there. I'll also link the blog post I was talking about, and you can look at my channel for more information about my experience with prolotherapy and brain retraining. If you want to learn about my experience with an animal-based diet, I actually have another YouTube channel called Ribeye Rach. It's just at Ribeye Rach, and I post a lot on Instagram as well, at Ribeye Rach. So there will be a lot of updates there. I'm hoping to be more consistent with YouTube videos. I know I've said that many times, but I just love the long-form content because it allows you to connect better and provide context for things that really do need the context. I'm really glad that I finally decided to just make this video. I've been putting off for a long time. Lots of you guys have been asking for it. I hope it wasn't too negative or heavy. It's just real, it's raw, it's my experience, and I have definitely learned a lot and grown through it, and I'm still working on processing the trauma that I went through because of all of this. But ultimately, I'm grateful that God has led me to find what helped me to heal, even though it wasn't this surgery. I also wanted to add that if this surgery has brought you progress or improvements in your own journey, then I am 100% rejoicing with you and so excited for you. That's all I want, is for people to feel better and to find healing, to believe in healing, and no matter what the means is, whether that is through Western medicine or other natural means like diet or brain retraining, whatever it is, I just want people to be healthy and to feel their best, because living with chronic illness is so difficult. I remember what it's like to be in that dark of a place, and I don't want anybody to be there for longer than they have to, and there's so much hope for healing. Of course, the surgery wasn't a positive experience for me, and honestly, in the hundreds of people that I've interacted with that have had the surgery, most of those people are still very sick, or if they did get better, it was through other means. I haven't really seen people have this surgery and just have this miraculous outcome. I really wish that doctors were more forthcoming about the seriousness of this surgery and the risks of this surgery, because that's what it comes down to, is there are 3 outcomes. You can have improvements, you could stay the same, or you could get worse, and there's no way of knowing what that outcome will be for anyone. And so that is a scary thing, especially when you are that severely ill, and I think it should be communicated more, and that some of these other things that are bringing so many people with cervical instability healing and progress should be more of a first line option than going straight to a surgery that will alter your neck and skull for the rest of your life. I really do believe that there are always multiple paths to healing, even in the most severe of situations. Thanks for watching this video. Thanks for coming along on my journey. Make sure to subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll look forward to seeing you in another video very soon.